let me first introduce our panelists today. We had the pleasure to have Sunny with us today. He is a partner managing director at Signia Ventures, and Signia is a C to Series A venture capital firm. Now they're based in San Francisco with $250 million under management, backed by LA movie studios, the Smithsonian Museum, and a number of university endowments and pension funds. He launched one of the first location-based apps, was also the largest seed investor in cruise automation, which was sold to GM for over $1 billion after 1.5 years. He was also the first investor in Manscaped, which is the fastest growing men's personal care brand in America, with 250 million annual revenues in under 3 years. So today we have the pleasure to welcome Sunny. Please give us an introduction to yourself.
So thank you for that kind introduction. As you mentioned, we have been investing in and around interactive entertainment, games, consumer mobile and social kind of platforms for some time. Epic is the company we're going to talk about today. But yeah, just a little bit more about the fund. As Catherine mentioned, this is our third fund we're investing out of with plans to raise a fourth sometime early next year. The fund is backed by a couple of movie studios, by Tencent in China, by the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C., and a whole bunch of Hollywood high net worth individuals and Silicon Valley family offices. So very excited to chat all things gaming today. I never thought that a childhood hobby would become a profitable career path, but I'm happy to delve into all the annexes and crannies of Epic Games today.
Great. So first of all, since we're doing a deep dive in Epic Games, do you mind giving us an overview since you've been an expert investing in gaming? What's your view? How do you describe Epic Games in a short intro for people who might not have heard of the company before?
Sure, yeah. So Epic is one of the leading gaming companies on the planet right now. It was founded in 1991 by a real tech industry luminary, a highly technical game developer named Tim Sweeney. The company was originally named Potomac Labs because he came from a town called Potomac or I don't even know how to say it, Potomac in Michigan. And he then relocated the company to North Carolina some years later. Tencent was actually one of the company's first investors, so they fared tremendously well from their early investment there. And for many years, the company was a gaming tools business. It used to create tools so other game developers could make games. And their most famous tool was the Unreal Engine, which now is probably the most advanced Hollywood and gaming content creation engine, tool set, picks and shovels to make really cool content. And then they're also now better known as the leaders in gaming with the world's most successful game called Fortnite. Many hundreds of millions of monthly active players, tens of millions of daily active users, and becoming far more than just a game. It's become a social network. It's become a platform for live music and live concerts. And it's widely seen as probably the market leader in the West when it comes to all things social, gaming, and technical these days. So happy to delve into that far more on today's call.
Great. So if anyone has questions, feel free to put in the Q&A box. I will ask these questions as they come in. So first of all, given what we read in the news with Epic's battle with Google and Apple, what's your take on the current situation? Do you mind just giving us your views on where Epic is going?
It's kind of like the Greek myth, Clash of the Titans, of what's going on right now. It's a lot of high school mean girls drama, but on a very, very public and multi-trillion-dollar scale. So we all know that whether we use an iPhone or we use an Android device, we depend upon the App Store for distribution of new software, right? Any game, any app. We think that Fortnite was registering for its payments system called V-Bucks, which is a form of monetization to buy skins in the game, in-app items, in-game items, weapons, costumes, tickets for live events. You need what's called V-Bucks to do that, and that's Fortnite's in-game currency. Apple is known as the toll taker or troll taker, depending on how you want to, which opinion you want to follow. But every dollar that goes through an app that you download through the Apple iOS App Store, Apple wants 30% of that dollar. So the way that we think about it from an economics perspective is gross national product versus gross domestic product. The way that US companies have to pay taxes on foreign earned earnings is kind of the way that Apple wants any lifetime dollar that your company makes. If you have an app, they want 30% of it. The App Store does about 15 billion in revenue each year, which is a tiny, minuscule 5% of Apple's overall revenue. So it's very, very small. Now, Fortnite is probably the first game that's had such strong consumer brands, such a consumer branding and loyalty, an obsessive user base that they feel they can really go up and challenge that for the first time ever. There is talk of a consortium emerging with other companies that have been going after Apple's monopolistic behavior through their app store. They control all the keys, they control all the bridges, et cetera, et cetera. So Spotify, for example, is one company in Europe that's been challenging them from an antitrust perspective for some time now. So there is talk about, thank you, Sachin, there is talk about actually leveraging that European distrust of Apple right now in America as well. It was a tremendous and tremendously creative piece of marketing. One of my good friends from business school was the guy who originally directed the famous Apple commercial named 1984, based on George Orwell's dystopian / present day American, perhaps, kind of view of the future. Right. It was all about don't be conformist, all about challenge the norms, don't fall into being an automaton, don't fall into being a prison number, challenge yourself, be individual, be unique. This is exactly what Fortnite now argues Apple is going against by becoming a big corporate ugly giant. So they actually fashioned a parody commercial of 1984 that just went viral 2 days ago. That's all about Apple is losing its roots regarding free and open web, challenging Microsoft, challenging IBM, the big Hewlett-Packard, the old crusty startups of yesteryear. So I do believe that we are starting to see, we're going to see capitulation from Apple and Google actually on this platform tax. And I actually think it's better for Apple long-term because it makes developers more loyal if more of their revenue stream comes from the Apple ecosystem. So we do think that this challenge is actually a strongly mounted one and will be very short-lived. The loyalty and obsessiveness from the gamer base, from the gamers for Fortnite is too loud to ignore, for Apple to ignore.
So I see that Shanbing has a question. Shanbing, would you like to ask the question directly?
Thanks very much, Catherine. Thank you, Sunny. I would just like to check with you if you might have any views on the current executive order by the US administration to ban both TikTok and WeChat, which possibly might affect Tencent as well. So perhaps your view on whether Epic Games is affected as well as other US game studios, given how extent the reach of Tencent is in the gaming world. Thanks.
My fund actually is quite close to the gentleman who joined as CEO of TikTok America, Kevin Mayer. And while I haven't spoken with him yet, I have chatted with plenty of folks who have worked with him. And I think the rhetoric is only going to step up in the next, at least in the run-up to the election. Tencent's an investor in my fund, and I have chatted, not officially, but with folks over there as well. And the belief is that it's a bipartisan kind of conjecture to kind of be China bashing at this point. Given how many apps and platforms are already banned in China, American companies are banned in China, the Twitter, Facebook, et cetera. The belief is that it was time for some form of retaliation, plus, being strong against China, against intellectual property theft and things like that. is kind of seen as a very much a bipartisan issue. So my belief is that that will absolutely continue through to next year, irrespective of who wins on the election side. So I do think that Tencent is in the crosshairs of this next. I actually believe that WeChat doesn't really have that much cultural sway over the majority of America, given that American users are largely Chinese folks speaking to their relatives back in China, Hong Kong, et cetera, and elsewhere in the world. TikTok is different because it's seen as a window for potential propaganda, sharing of data under Chinese national security laws, et cetera, of user information, irrespective of where servers might be stationed. So I do believe that the anti-China platform is going to continue for some time, and I do think that Tencent will enter into those crosshairs. Less so the Alibabas and the commerce-focused folks, much more the media-focused folks in the near term. It's very easy to use that as a marketing rallying cry for, defend the young minds against propaganda, defend, people who are getting sucked into, foreign-owned content, for example, versus, buy cheap scrubbing brushes and, do a dropship business on Facebook. So I do think that Tencent probably will be into the crosshairs in the future.
Great. So go ahead.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Because Sunny, I'm curious though on Epic Games, how this might affect Epic Games, because the executive order is a little bit ambiguous on the parent company of WeChat, Tencent. And Tencent being one of the world's largest, if not the largest, games player. How do you think this will play out for other US game studios as well?
Sorry, I'm confused on the question. So the relationship between Tencent and Epic is what you're asking about? You're saying Epic being blocked from the App Store, how will that impact other game developers?
No, because I think Tencent is investing in Epic Games as well as other US game studios, right? And then the executive order ban on WeChat seems to apply that US businesses also cannot have business dealings with Tencent. So I'm just wondering, do you think there's an effect on that?
Yeah. So tell me if I'm cutting out again. But the thinking is other US game studios have largely been console-based games for the majority of time. Electronic Arts and Activision Blizzard are probably the two biggest that you're aware of, right? And they've always been largely either PC or console. The PC hardcore games, the World of Warcrafts, the StarCrafts, et cetera, that came from Blizzard, were usually direct client downloads, so they didn't need an app store, right? Now with the general trend towards games as a service, i.e. games that are always like perpetual online living worlds where there's always new level uploads and things like that, I think the same platform tax would emerge, but you haven't really seen those kinds of games. There's big, giant cross-platform games where you can play on a Nintendo Switch, on an Xbox, on PC, and on mobile all at once. You're only recently seeing the technology that enables you to do that. And that's become largely with cloud gaming, right? With what you're seeing from capabilities from AWS, Azure, and now Google Stadia, which is Google Cloud effectively. So I do think that it's a relatively new phenomenon to see this level of monetization occurring in mobile games. So in terms of your question, what does this bode for others? I hope this is a battle that Epic wins to be able to create more opportunities for monetization for these giant cross-platform games. We had one called Dauntless, that was made by Phoenix Labs that we sold to SEA Garena in Singapore recently. And this game was launched in the Epic Games Store. It monetized directly through their own website, though. It didn't have any in-app purchases when you were playing the game on mobile. They hadn't launched on iOS or anything like that yet, but they knew if they went to iOS, that would be something they would have to do. And it's a trade-off. Do you want the billions of users that come with Apple, putting you on stage or putting you on the editorial page, or not? So it becomes very much an LTV calculation that most people would say is something they're willing to pay. So I think the Epic conversation is not going to be one that's augmented by additional US gaming studios, because no one has the clout in mobile gaming like Epic does to really matter. right now.
So one of the things that I find interesting is about Epic's long-term plan. They have worked into Epic augmented reality, virtual reality. Can you cover a little bit about the future, what their plans are in terms of, where they want to go from a gaming company?
Sure. So the features of what we've tried to do in augmented reality and virtual reality is very much one of what we call the metaverse. And the metaverse is largely best known as if anyone's seen the science fiction movie that became a big hit a couple of years ago called Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Catherine, I know you and I have talked about this geeky stuff in the past, I'm sure. It's largely geared towards virtual reality. If you put in an Oculus headset and you live in a living, breathing, computer-generated world, or augmented reality, where you're able to put glasses on, which Apple is rumored to be coming out with in 2023 or 2022 for early prototypes, depending on how far it gets. And it depends on a couple of things. We need some real hardcore telecom infrastructure changes to happen before the metaverse can occur, namely 5G and namely data centers everywhere. So we need tons of processing to occur off device. We can't have any processing done on glasses, right? Because it's just going to be too bulky. The battery will overheat your face, like blah, 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 blah. So the idea of the metaverse, like I said, this is how the valuation of this company from the 17.3 billion gets to being like $1 trillion market cap. It's where every piece of real estate on your t-shirt, on your laptop, on your car is covered with augmented reality advertising. Or there's an avatar the way that you equip your avatar in a game is the way that you will equip your real life avatar when people see you in an augmented reality world. So that's really the big vision for how Epic gets much, much bigger. There are other stepping stones for how it gets, much more revenue, more hit games, expansion of its Unreal creation engine within Hollywood, and industrial kind of architectural planning and things like that. But the lion's share of how it really gets very, very big is through the metaverse, which Tim Sweeney has actually been talking about for the last 10, 15 years. And he's probably one of the market leaders, or the industry leaders when it comes to making that a reality.
Great. And as because many of us here are investors, we'd love to understand, they recently raised a 17.3 billion valuation. How do you think about, can you help us break it down, the valuation? How do you think about the numbers really, putting it together? Does it make sense to invest at this current valuation?
So let's say the disclaimer, this is not financial advice. We are not recommending investments and all that good stuff. This is purely my opinion. For if we were thinking of investing, for example, we are an early stage fund, so it is off model for us. That said, do I think there's significant uplift from here on out? Absolutely. Through the aforementioned avenues of Hollywood, new gaming titles, and through the Unreal Engine's expansion to being the base layer for the metaverse, right? That's like the real $1 trillion opportunity. So I'll run you through some numbers. This is stuff that I've read through press, that's unsubstantiated, that's just been heard through conversations here in the Valley and stuff, right? So once again, this is not audited financial information or anything like that. This is just indications of what's leaked in the press and rumored information for the company. So overall revenue was about 4.3 billion in 2019, apparently. As of May 2020, I think they had hovering under 100 million MAUs for Fortnite, from what I understand. They had about 31 million or 32 million or so people using HouseParty, which was their video conferencing app. Maybe next time we'll do this call through HouseParty so that we have better internet connectivity. I actually just, I know the original founder of HouseParty. The story of that company is a whole separate, story for us to discuss at some point. But overall, I would say about hovering around well beyond the majority of revenue for the company does come from gaming and entertainment. And the minority, I would say, comes from its Unreal Engine right now. It's just because, and that's not saying that Unreal is small. It's just saying that Fortnite has been such a global phenomenon. With its 80+ million monthly active users, that's kind of like unprecedented in a game that's this new, right? They also purchased about 3 years ago, I believe, a studio called Psyonix, which has another hit game called Rocket League, which is rumored to have about 9 to 10 million monthly active users, is what folks have kind of guessed at for some time. So they launched the Epic Game Store as well. It's funny that they're going after Apple right now for charging a platform tax. They charge a platform tax themselves. It's far cheaper. I think it's only at 10 or 15%. But they had 45 million people monthly coming to that store and downloading something, right? Mostly Fortnite, but there's also many other games that they're distributing now. Going after the leading PC game distribution company, which is called Steam. Valve is the company that owns it, based out of Seattle, owned by one guy. So what else can I say? Oh yeah, so they're really smart with getting people to come to their store to download games, because they take a cut from the publisher when you do that, right? So they do these free giveaways to get people to familiar with the downloads, and they gave away Grand Theft Auto 5 recently, and the numbers soared through the roof. And a lot of those people came back to download new games and pay for them. That was actually a very successful marketing tactic. Rumored revenue for the Unreal Engine was, around 100 million for 2009. The game store did around, north of 200 million in 2019 for their revenue. I believe it's their net revenue. And then their Unreal game engine numbers, are pretty substantial as well. They have many hundreds of thousands of people using this game engine every single month to create games. But then it was also there's also commercial applications within Hollywood, for example. And it's no secret that much of the Star Wars Lucasfilm Mandalorian series was actually created using the Unreal Engine. So it looks so real. And yes, it is CGI, but it's actually created using the same tech that makes a video game. So that's some of the high level on the company. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is just leaked in the press, but very bullish on these numbers. These numbers are incredibly strong for a gaming company today.
Definitely. So Wei, I see you have a question. Would you like to ask it yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I am Wei Sun. I am a founder of an education company, and we're trying to incorporate a lot of gamification into our apps. And so this is a very relevant conversation to us. My question is, what are some possible ramifications for the gaming and mobile landscapes if Epic is able to cause Apple and Google to capitulate?
More money for developers is what it really means. The lion's share of that is it means it's such a small, tiny fraction of Apple's revenue that they can afford to let it go and really seriously enrich the developer ecosystem on mobile in general. And if they're thinking about getting these people to be the same devs that they want to, keep in mind, I was one of the first developers that launched an app on the App Store back in 2010 or 2011. It was a dating app that we launched, and when there were like 200-300 apps on the App Store, there was no editorial team, there was no customer support, there was no nothing, right? There was just a buggy App Store that would never accept updates that you'd push through, just because it was such a rudimentary process at the time. That's obviously becoming
Barstool, right? That's the
Barstool, yeah. We succeeded in helping almost zero couples end up dating, but we succeeded in being one of the first widely downloaded apps in the location-based dating sphere back in 2011. My point with that is, look how enriched just in 9 years the App Store ecosystem has become, right? There's many billions of dollars distributed to developers. And if those same developers are going to be the ones that are going to be captive on an augmented reality platform that Apple hopes to capture with glasses, with hardware in the not too distant future, then I think creating more sticky relationships with those developers is probably a good thing. So Wei, to answer your question, I do believe that if Apple capitulates, it's a slippery slope, and the margins are going to get slowly eroded further and further down over time. But once again, I think Apple can very easily afford to do that, given it's only 5% of their revenue. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you for your insights.
Sure.
Great. So we have a few more questions from the audience. First one being, when Epic decided to acquire some of the competitors, what do you think is their future M&A strategy, or where do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, I know. I've actually followed with them on this on a couple of things. So they actually hired a guy that we knew out of Activision Blizzard, who was a longtime gaming guy named Nate Nanzer, a good friend of mine. who we regularly speak at the Tokyo Game Show together. He was the former head of the Overwatch League for the Overwatch hit game, shooting game at Activision Blizzard. And he actually built all the esports around that. All the pro teams, the franchises, kind of building the NFL of this specific game. The fact that he was hired away to Epic in advance of this most recent round does kind of paint a picture that there will be far more competition and competitive team sports and like the esports craze coming to Epic's titles. So, we think about Fortnite. You could very easily put team-based mini games inside of Fortnite beyond just capture the flag. You could have, beyond just MOBA, everyone for themselves kind of thing. You could absolutely put real games into that game format, that living world format. But then also they currently have a game that already is esports compatible and thriving called Rocket League, right? So expanding upon that, buying other studios that have really rabidly loyal fan bases, and now with a cash hoard that they can rival any M&A department when it comes to making an acquisition. They're not going to be out there buying King.com, casual Candy Crush kind of like little businesses. They're going to be going after core gamers. And that's people, think the same kid that who likes to hurl firebolts and electricity in World of Warcraft, or the same kid that likes to walk around with a sniper rifle in Counter-Strike. These are the kinds of folks that the kinds of eyeballs and audience they want to acquire. So I do absolutely think that they'll be acquisitive on the studio side. The other part of it is on the tech side. So what tech could there be to enable you to engage with your Fortnite characters outside of Fortnite? Why is my Fortnite character not my avatar on WeChat or in WhatsApp? Why do I not have GIFs from my latest kills in Fortnite that I could share across various platforms? So anything that makes the game more social outside of the game, that it allows you to connect with a guild, with your team, with merchandise, like FaZe Clan or 100 Thieves kind of fashion accessories. That is stuff that I think that they're going to be acquiring in the near term too, to make Fortnite more than just a game and to make it a cultural zeitgeist.
Great. So Sachin, you have a question?
Sure, Sunny. I know you said you could talk about HouseParty for a whole session, but I'd be interested to hear your views on HouseParty as a part of the portfolio, where you see it growing, especially consider the impetus we've all had globally with COVID.
Oh yeah, and trust me, my mom still sends me requests I'm sure she'll do it during this call if she was awake, to play, Words with Friends or Yahtzee or whatever mini games they launch. So yes, everyone has played with HouseParty during COVID. Now, I think insofar as it relies on, leans on Epic, I think the real goal for acquiring HouseParty was to go after Discord. Discord is one of the leading venture-backed freestanding gamer community chat platforms that's based here in San Francisco. Formed by a guy named Jason Citron. And I think the goal here was that Epic wants to own the conversation that you're having about Epic, or that while you're coordinating like team-based kills, or you're coordinating on team strategy when you're in the game. They want you to be doing that on an Epic platform, so they can own that relationship. The minute that you're on a third-party platform, you don't know if you're going to get bombarded with advertisements. You can't control the look and the feel. You can't step in for community management guidelines if there's anything inappropriate going along. So I think all that stuff really factors into why they wanted to integrate HouseParty into gameplay.
And do you have any idea on what terms they acquired the HouseParty app for?
I do, but it's not something that I would definitely get in trouble if I shared it.
No worries. Okay, well, Trevor, I think Trevor has a question here as well. I think he might have some mic problems. I will just read the question. Trevor asks, are there anyone else who stands a chance to build a metaverse?
Well, I mean, Mark Zuckerberg thinks he can, right? He just crossed the $100 billion personal net worth mark. Centicorn, I think they call that. Whoever comes up with these stupid names, I mean, get a life. But yeah, I think the idea for Facebook to buy Oculus was very much on Palmer Luckey's vision of Oculus being the hardware platform to engage with Ready Player One. It's hilarious that there was actually a time at Facebook where the author of Ready Player One, he came to visit Palmer at Oculus after the company been acquired in Menlo Park, and Palmer bought a tank
to drive around, because this is what you do if you're young and have too much money, I guess, in the Bay Area. And him, if the founder of Oculus and the creator of Ready Player One, just having an existential conversation about what it takes to expand the metaverse was just, from what I heard from other people who were there, was just like a very cool geek kind of moment to behold. Insofar as the reality of what this base layer is, I think Facebook has the social data to be able to help you bring your friends into this shared world with you, which does make it more real when there's real people they're partaking in activities alongside you. In terms of the actual technology required to build it, I think that it's like Apple controls so much of you because it controls the hardware that you use to speak to people, right, and to connect with people. The internet is an open system, or at least theoretically an open system. So it's kind of, no one really owns it. I think the Unreal Engine or Unity, its biggest competitor, are probably that most basic layer, like the internet layer of creating the metaverse. There definitely are vested interests already in doing that, and already in claiming ownership stakes over that base layer. Now, we're still so early in its development and in the technology that's required to bring it to fruition, that there are many other equally important pillars required for that to become a reality. Like I said, 5G, data center robustness, streaming speed, reliability, without which you can't maintain the immersion of the metaverse. You'll keep having just as good a Wi-Fi as I've had on this call, and that doesn't seem very real, right, in a metaverse situation. So my short answer is I think that there are several other companies that are equally important components of the metaverse, but in terms of the base creation layer, it's Epic with its Unreal Engine and Unity with its creation engine.
Great. Thanks, Sunny. Chris, looks like you have raised your hand.
Thanks, Catherine. Hey, Sunny. Hey, more of a deal-related question. Intrigued as to what the use of funds are for the 1.7, 1.8 billion, particularly given the business's forecast to have an EBITDA of circa 1 billion in 2020. So business of this scale, just wondering, with that sort of money, particularly being pre-IPO, I'm assuming, for the next few years, what are they actually needing that much money to build?
Yeah, so I think that when you have this, traditionally when you've had that, so I mean, I don't know the answer because I'm not on the management team, obviously, but if I had to guess, and from conversations that I've had, once you have a hit game, the worst thing you can become is complacent on that hit game and not have a follow-up in development, right? Which they obviously do through various other studios that they're working on right now, various other games that they're working on. Keep in mind, the Epic Game Store that they're launching for like their own game downloads and app store or whatever is a prime indicator of what their own first-party games studios are going to be developing in-house. So Gears of War was one of those top tier games that they developed themselves, like a decade ago or something, right? Or 12 years ago. And I know that there are several other titles in development that are AAA, multi-$100 million budget type of games. And you need to have several that you're going to be taking through various stages of the beta testing process. And you'll kill many of them along the way when the numbers don't resonate with consumers with gamers. But so game development is one answer to your question. Two, I do believe that it was cheap money in a very good market where people were playing a very good hit game. So sometimes there's an element of raise the money because you can. And I'm not sure I agree with your view that it'll be a public company in 2 or 3 years. I actually think that they'll continue to be able, if they continue to have a hit game and Unreal as a creation engine continues to grow, particularly within the gamer community and in Hollywood, I do believe that they will continue. They could do another round very easily at another up round valuation because it's cheap money for them. I don't see Tim Sweeney dealing too well being a public company CEO, just given how technical and how kind of esoteric he is as a personality, as a revered personality. So I actually think that they're going to remain private, if I had to guess. But I am very bullish on their long-term prospects. I do think that this company has a lot of upside ahead of it, more so on the games development side as a hit game creator, just given how intimately they know their gamers versus like having a bunch of Harvard MBAs do a bunch of market research type things like many of the other big game studios do these days.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I completely made that stuff up though, just from talking to people and stuff. So don't take it as gospel, obviously. That's just my opinion.
No, it's fascinating, and it's good to hear other opinions. Thank you for sharing.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Sunny, for joining us today. As always, MarketX is a pre-IPO investment platform. We'd love to help people understand these pre-IPO deals out there. So if you have any questions, feel free to message me, reach out to me directly. Again, thank you guys for logging in, and can't wait to have you joining us for our next session on Stack Overflow.